Welcome to the What's New in Workforce session. And as with all of our sessions, it starts with a test. And you actually pass the first question. And that's, where was this session located? I mean, thank you for coming all this way to the San Jacinto room. Luckily, you're getting your steps in as you make it all this way, and then all the way back for your next session, probably in Primrose or whatever it is, right? What we wanted to do today is we want to talk about the current status of workforce, what's coming with it, and then spend a bunch of time introducing a new offering that's built out of what we've done for workforce called Tracker. Has anyone heard of Tracker yet? A few of you? So we're going to spend a bunch of time on that product as well today. But I wanted to start by going over workforce a little bit, set the context, and then we'll have Craig show a bunch of demonstrations on workforce, the product, and how you can integrate with it. So we built Workforce a couple of years ago as your personal to-do list in the field. Thinking about the smaller to mid-size public works and utility companies that manage their work today in spreadsheets, or in some instances they may have a work order management system but no solution for the field and want to integrate with the ArcGIS platform. So Workforce has an aspect of it that is for the GIS administrator that can establish workforce projects. They can create what we call work assignments. You can even use, as you'll see, the Python API to programmatically load work into the product. And then take it out to the field as a mobile application that runs on the iOS and Android platform, and it integrates with the rest of our field apps. So you can have it remotely control Navigator to get to the location of the work you need to do, remotely control Collector or Survey 123 to do data collection and inspection workflows. And it itself can manage the work in the context of what we call an assignment. And that assignment has date timestamps associated with it, so you can measure the performance of your field workforce if you want. And key to what drove us to this new app called Tracker is that it also has the capability to know the last known location of every mobile worker as well as their location history. So you can use it to more efficiently dispatch work that needs to be completed in the field. Current status on the product, it's been out, like I mentioned, for a couple of years. We support the iOS and Android platform. As far as the mobile devices go, we support ArcGIS Enterprise and ArcGIS Online. If you're using ArcGIS Enterprise, it's a separate installer that you need to download from the My Esri website in order to install the Workforce back office web environment that lets you create what we call workforce projects and get up and running with workforce in your organization. But we've gone through a few changes in the past year or so that I wanted to point out. We do have new resources on our product page. We have a resources page that has a number of tutorials that get you up and running. And is everyone familiar with the Learn Gallery? Have you heard of the Learn Gallery before? A couple of you. If you go, James, you don't count, you work for
Red badges can't raise their hands, man.
If you go to learn.arcgis.com, there's a gallery of Learn lessons, and it's a great resource for you whether you're using Workforce, any of our other field apps, or any other aspect of our platform for that matter. A lot of what's in there is how-to articles that step you through getting used to using some of our products. Some of the administration improvements we made over the last year, we added app integration to Explore for ArcGIS so that you can launch from Workforce on the mobile application into Explorer and use Explorer as that app for redlining and markup in the field where that field worker doesn't really have the rights or the need to modify the GIS. Maybe they're doing their own work in the field, they encounter some issue where the infrastructure isn't the as-builts aren't meeting what's actually out there in the field, and they can mark it up. It supports even downloading maps for offline as part of that integration. We did a little bit more for the data collection and inspection workflows where you can pass information from the work assignment schema directly into a collector in Survey 123. And one of the critical things there is a global ID, so you could start to link the work that's being done with the work assignments that are being completed in the field. And as you'll see, we added a workforce module to the Python API. On the mobile app, we haven't really done much on it in a while, but one of the key things we did add was the ability for you to prove that work was done or reasons why it wasn't completed by attaching photos directly inside of the assignment or videos perhaps, so that documents the completion or lack of completion of the work. So with that, I thought it best that we start to look at workforce. I'm going to pass it over to Craig to give you some demos. Craig.
All right, thanks, Jeff. So I'm going to go through a number of different things today. One of the things I'm going to kind of pull back a little bit and not do sort of an overview on workforce. We've got the showcase area. We're more than happy for you to come by and dig into that. I'm going to focus on some of the other ideas, this being a developer summit, of how you can configure and use workforce projects both through the UI and through the Python API that Jeff mentioned. So starting off there, taking a look at the ArcGIS API for Python page, which has the Managing Workforce for ArcGIS module. Really this is where we see a lot of customers using Python to really automate their work with workforce. Whether it be the configuration of it or loading in assignments, it's a really powerful way that allows you to script and automate the work that you're doing. This could be sort of a one-time thing where you're pulling in data from a CSV, or you actually might be connecting to a database and pulling that over and using it as an ETL type process. So kind of starting off on the actual ArcGIS API for Python page itself. Moving over to GitHub, we have our workforce scripts repo. This is where all the scripts and notebooks live as well that are maintained by the team, and by the team I mean Aaron to my left, who manages this. Really responsive to pull requests and issues that come up. It's a really exhaustive and well-documented area, and we've got a large number of scripts here, some of which I'm going to go into, that give a really good overview of sort of extending workforce. We really think of workforce as an a la carte kind of product that you can use. And you'll see that a little bit when I go through the demo. Jeff mentioned the different user types or the different use cases that we have with workforce in terms of the people who configure the workforce project, those who create it for dispatching work and creating work assignments, and then the mobile workers who take that work out into the field. We've really got a large collection of users in our community who use it in very different ways. Some of them mainly just use the UI and really don't work with it in any other way, and it works really well for them. Others actually don't use the web piece at all. They either use Python to script to create those work assignments and then deliver it to their mobile workers. So you can see that they're kind of taking what works for them and using that to build up a solution that works best. To get started, let me head over to the Workforce web application itself, and I'll refresh this. So what you're looking at here is the view of Workforce through my account in our organization, and I've got a list of projects that are displayed here, many of which you can see are for testing. Evidently, Aaron gives me a lot of stuff to test because he creates a whole bunch of them. But really the one that I want to focus in here is the one that we're going to dig into during this demo, which is the Public Works work orders. So I'm going to open that up to take a look at it. Now this is just an empty project that I created as the GIS administrator. You can see that there's really only one user participating in it, and we'll see who that is in a second. I don't have any assignments created in it or any assignment types. So if we take a look at some of the different areas to configure, you can see that my assignment types is empty. Now the assignment types is the way that the people in the back office, the dispatchers, those responsible for creating work, communicate with their mobile workers in the field. So it's how they talk about the different type of work that they're doing. The other area that I can configure is who actually participates in this project. Now, because I created it, I'm added to it automatically, and you can see I'm listed there. But you can also go and add your mobile users who are in the field to use it, and also your dispatchers. And I could do that through the UI here, but I'm going to use the Python API for that in a second. The last area that I like to focus on is the Advanced tab, where we have a listing of the different integrations, like Jeff mentioned, that are available with Workforce. All Workforce projects come with Navigator integrated with them by default. If you happen to have Navigator and it's available to your mobile workers on their device, they'll be prompted to use it. Otherwise, it won't be available to them. So we actually add this and bake this integration into the Workforce project JSON so that you can easily take advantage of it if you have Navigator. But like I said, if you don't, it's not available. It doesn't cost you anything. It's just a quick and easy way to get up and running with it. And you can see the other apps that we integrate, like Jeff mentioned, Collector, Explorer, and Survey. And then the last piece I'll mention, which is the location tracking. This is the location tracking piece that we've had with Workforce ever since the beginning. This is going to be replaced in the next version of Workforce by the tracker capability that Aaron's going to show in a little bit. All right, so let's head back to the overview here. And actually, the next thing I'm going to jump over to is just really quickly kind of reset for everybody and show what actually gets created in your organization when you create a Workforce project. How many people have created a Workforce project and taken a look at it like this? Raise them high. I'm going to ask all sorts of questions. Right? All right. So just a few. So for others, it'll be, for those of you, it'll be a review, but for others, it'll be new. So Workforce, when you create a new Workforce project, creates all of these items for you. So it creates 4 feature services to store the information that I just spoke about. It creates 2 web maps, and then a Workforce project. The Workforce project is located here, and really that's just a little bit of JSON. It's just metadata describing the different feature services and the web maps that are available there. Should you ever open these up and take a look at them in your organization like this? Yeah, totally. Go ahead and take a look, right? Investigate them, get used to what's there. In fact, we encourage that in our documentation to get a good sense of what's there and to actually extend some capabilities of Workforce if you're interested in it. So these are all the things that we create when we create a Workforce project for you, and it gets laid down within your organization, all contained within a folder that you can see here. And then there's a corresponding group created with all of these items as well. These items are added to that group. And as new users are added to that project, as either workers or dispatchers, they're invited to participate in that group, and that's what controls access to it. So the set of projects that I see as either a dispatcher logging into the web app or a mobile worker is based on the number of projects that I've been added to in a group. Okay? All right, so that's sort of a quick overview of what Workforce is and the web app that starts into it. Let me head over to the Python API so I can show some of the things that you can actually do with Workforce. So I'm going to be running with Jupyter Notebooks here because I am not a Python ninja. That is Aaron who is a Python ninja. So I'm going to take advantage of his ninja-esque skills and run some notebooks to show you how you can quickly automate and get up and running with Workforce in several different ways. So the first thing I'm going to do is configure a Workforce project. Now, one of the questions that we get is, when should I dig into this? When should I start using Python to configure and work with my Workforce projects? And what we recommend is go and create a project and get used to it as a prototype. There's no cost to create that project. Workforce is in your organization and you're using it. So creating these Workforce projects, it's really just items that you're creating. You can go and use them as a proof of concept, get a good sense of how you want to configure that project, what type of work should be in it. Once that's set up, that's when you would then take that information and then move it over into the Python API using notebooks to script and recreate these as you get going. So you might need to create multiple different projects, maybe with the same assignment types, but it gives you a really quick and easy way to do that. All right, so let's get started configuring this. So the first thing we're going to do is actually go and import the Workforce module from the API. The next thing that we'll do is actually go sign in, and I'll enter my password to authenticate myself. Now this is actually going to give me access to all the projects that I have in the web app. Now the next thing that we're going to do is look for a particular Workforce project, and you can see what we're doing here is we're searching for any item types of type Workforce project that are called public works work orders. Next thing we'll do is go and open up that project. And then we're going to go and configure and add several different assignment types to it. Now, you can kind of fast forward a little bit. These are the different assignment types that I've spoken with my workers who are heading to the field who are interested in actually performing work. In this case, it's filling potholes, doing sidewalk repair, and painting crosswalks. Now, I'm keeping this really simple here and just pulling these in line. You could also have these stored in a CSV or any other format that you could read in through the Python API. The next step that I'll do is actually go and add workers to my project. And again, there's a number of different ways that you can do this. And we hear this request from customers. If I head back to the workforce project for a second and head over to the users tab, you'll see that I can actually add workers from a file. So within the UI, we give you the ability to import workers from a CSV to kind of speed that up and make that easier for you. But you can also continue to do that through the Python API as well. Or you could point to an existing group in your organization to pull those users in. And that's actually what I'm doing here. So you've got several different methods of actually importing the workers into your project, whether it be adding them one by one through the UI, adding them by pointing to a CSV file, or using the Python API to point to, say, an existing group and pull those workers in. After we add the workers to the project, the next thing that we're going to do is actually go and add some dispatchers to the project. So dispatchers are those users in the organization who are responsible for creating and assigning work. You could think of them like someone who's manning a call center or a 311 center. They could be the supervisor for this set of workers who makes the decision that someone should be given this work in order to go and perform it. So I'll go and import the two workers that I have here, Mabel and Carolyn. Now, the last piece that I'm going to go do is actually go and add an app integration for my workforce project. And in this case, I'm going to choose to go and add an Explorer app integration. And what I'm doing is I'm looking for a particular web map that's owned by a particular user in my organization. I'm then going to go and ensure that that web map is actually shared with the workforce project group so that it can be properly used. And then lastly, I'm going to go and add that integration so that it's set up within my project. Now, everything that I did here is equivalent to what you can do, for the most part, within the Workforce web UI. So in terms of actually going and adding those assignment types, grabbing the workers from a group, pulling the dispatchers in, and then maybe adding the app integration. This is what happens when you practice it 15 times before you go and do that. So let's head back to that same project that I had, and I'll go and refresh it so we can take a look at what happened when I pulled those in. All right, so here's those three assignment types that I pulled in, right? There's the fill in pothole, painting the crosswalk, and the sidewalk repair. Here's the different users that I pulled in here. You can see Aaron, James, and myself are all mobile workers. Mabel and Carolyn are dispatchers. And the app integration didn't work, so I won't go over and show that. But the main point of what I'm making here is that with the Python API, the same calls, the same edits you're making are exactly the same as what you would do through the UI. So you can use the two in conjunction with one another. So I could actually come in here and choose that I'd like to add Jeff Shaner as a mobile worker as well. So I can use the Python API to configure my project, and I could go in and make tweaks and refinements through the web app. There's nothing special that we're doing from the Python API in particular like that, okay? So that was configuring the project, but the next piece that I need to do is actually go and create some assignments in that project. So let's head over to another notebook that I've got set up, which is actually showing various different ways that you can import assignments into Workforce. Now, there's very different ways that you might create work. One way you might do it is you might have unscheduled or unplanned work. You might have people who are manning a call center, having information come in, and as that information is vetted, decided, they're actually using the Workforce web app to go and create assignments, which I'll show in a couple minutes. Another way it might work is someone actually might have already made a decision, maybe in another system, that work needs to be done. So what's an example of that? Well, it could be a work order management system. It could be an asset management system. Maybe you're using one of our business partner solutions to actually determine what the maintenance schedule is of assets that you have within your organization. And the decision about what work needs to be done is made in that other system. You can use the Python API to read from that other system, if there's a way to link into it, or, as I'm going to show, say from a CSV file, and pull those assignments in within the Workforce web application, and they'll be created identically to how assignments are created through the Workforce web app. So it makes it really simple and easy to be able to script and automate the pulling in of that work. So it doesn't always have to be a manual process that's done actually by a human to pull that information in. All right, so let's dig into a couple of the different things here. So I'll sign in again. Now the first thing that I'm going to do is actually go and import from a CSV file. So this is an example of a CSV file that I've got here on disk. I'll head and open that up. If we take a look at it, here's what it is, right? So it's configured a particular way, and we provide you with data examples in the Python API Workforce module through that GitHub repo to get you a head start on it. So I've got the header at the very top showing the address, the information, the description of what needs to be done, and several other pieces of information about this particular set of assignments that need to be created. So I can then go and actually import that information in. Now what I'd like to do is actually use the assignment object to go and create an assignment for each of that piece of information that I pulled in. I'm using the geocoder associated with my organization to do the geocode based on the information I had. We've got a really good document that describes the workforce schema that's laid down that goes through all of the different fields that we have up here and what that information is in terms of mapping it to your existing system. I've just taken a bit of a shortcut and actually simplified it a little bit for the purpose of the demo, just targeting some of the main pieces that are available there. The last thing that we'll do is actually go and add those different assignments to the Workforce project. And then if we head back here and take a look at our overview, you can see now we've got 6 assignments that have been created where I had 0 before. So let's head back here and show a couple other ways that we can do creating of Workforce projects as well. Or Workforce assignments. The other way that we can do it is actually importing from a feature layer. So you can configure the Workforce web map that's used for dispatchers to add additional feature layers so your dispatchers can create work based on those features. Well, what's an example of why you might do that? Well, you might have an asset layer that someone needs to query and locate and find and create an assignment from it. At the same time, you actually might say, we have some work scheduled to be done, and we know what all the assets are that work needs to be done on. You could easily identify those different assets within that feature layer and then use the Python API to import that based on a filter or a query that you're applying to that feature layer. So again, it gives you that flexibility to be able to easily load those in without having to do that manual work. So in this case, we're going and accessing the crosswalk painting feature layer to be able to pull in.
That wasn't for you.
I'm going to assume that was for me, but it was a little fast because I haven't gotten to that part yet, but that's cool. Yeah. It's actually for Aaron's. They're getting ready for his demo later. Yeah. So then we'll go in and actually pull all of those features in that match the query, and then we'll add those as well. And then the very last one I'll show is importing from an SQL database. Now this is one example that we've gotten a lot of requests about. It really doesn't matter what database you're pulling it in from. So I showed a CSV file and then a feature layer. Really, we're just accessing an SQLite database that we have with some information in it. But this could be any database. It could be Postgres, Oracle. It could be a proprietary database through a business partner where you're accessing, or through another app that you're using where you're accessing their API and using it to pull information in. This is just an example of where you're using something other than a feature service or a flat file on disk to pull that information in. All right, so we've gone and pulled that in from the SQLite database, and then when we head back and we're going to refresh, now we've got 15 assignments that we've gone and created and all set up. And if we go and open up the Workforce project, you'll see those 15 assignments are located. Let's go and select them and zoom into them. There's all those assignments that we created programmatically. You can see the different assignment types that have come in and been set up. And really just to prove the point that I can work with the assignments either in the web app or through the Python API, I'm actually going to go and find all of the high priority ones, and I'm going to go and assign those to myself. I'll clear that, and if we only look at those 5, you can see that I've got those assignment features I created through the Python API. I'm using them the exact same way through the Workforce web app. Is there anything special or particular that we're doing through the Python API to create these features? No, right? We're just wrapping it up and making it really convenient. If I wanted to, could I go and do all of this through the REST endpoint by calling add features? Absolutely. Could I go and do this through, say, a thick client like Pro or through the map viewer if I followed the schema rules as we've documented? Totally. So there's nothing special about what we're doing through the web app. It's open. It's available for you to create these assignments either manually or programmatically. We've just created the Python API to make it really easy and simple to be able to do that. So now that I've got those assignments created, I can actually go and find that project here and actually open it on my mobile app here. And there we go. You can see here's those 5 assignments that I just created and assigned to myself. I can now go and use those and actually work with them to start that work. I can choose to take a photo. Maybe there's a nefarious looking person near me while I'm trying to fill that pothole. It's such a sketchy photo, dude.
It totally is.
Right. Let's see, I'll go and add a note here. There's a vagrant near the pothole. I'll go mark that as finished. And you can see I've only got 4 assignments that are left. And when I head back into, not into our GitHub repo, obviously trimming the backlog right before I came into this meeting. Here's that assignment that I just completed. We can go and see that there. And if we look at the attachments, there's that super sketchy person that we had there. So again, just a really quick overview of Workforce. You know, we're at the island, available to take a deeper dive with you if you're interested in it, dig into some questions on it. But really just wanted to highlight the Python API and how easy it is with the Workforce module to be able to create assignments and then work with them just like you created them through the web API or through our web app, and then be able to use them on the mobile app as well. And if I can quickly take 2 minutes, am I totally over time?
2 minutes.
2 minutes, all right. I'll take like 2 minutes and I'll quickly like to show what's coming in Workforce if I can do that.
You can totally do that.
I can do that? All right.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so I'd like to do a bit of a highlight in terms of what's coming for Workforce. So what I've got here is a different view than what I have been showing. So what I've got here is on the left-hand side, you see the Workforce web application, and on the right-hand side, you see the mobile app. But these are different. This is actually our current development environment for the next release of Workforce that we're currently working on. Jeff's going to talk a little bit about what's included in that. But for us, this release is all about offline support. Right now, Workforce is a connected app, so it only works when you have a network connection. You are notified when you're trying to make a change to a Workforce assignment and don't have a connection. But we know offline is an important thing because you're not always going to have a connection when you're working with it. So this release of Workforce is really all focused on working with it in an offline manner. So the look and feel to it is very similar. For those of you who've seen our other apps, whether it's the new version of Collector or Explorer and Navigator, you can see that the view of the Workforce mobile app is a little different. I've got the panel available to me, and I can actually see that in context with the map as well. But I can actually go and open up one of these assignments and do some work on it. But the first thing I'm going to do is actually go offline. So ignore the fact it says I have a cell signal. That's just because I'm showing it here through QuickTime. But I am actually offline right now. I'll go and start this assignment. I'll take a photo. I'll pick someone who's less nefarious looking. This time, I'll go and set that up. And if I head over here and actually go and take a look at the work that's assigned to me and order it so that we've got the highest priority stuff here, you'll see that this assignment is one that I've started, right? There's no edit that's here. So, you know, I really am offline. I can go and add, this is a note to it, right? And set it up. So there we go, everything's set. And then when I get a connection again, coming offline, I can choose to go in sync, and it's going to push that up. And the sync is actually grabbing the edits that I've made, syncing them up into my feature service, making them available. And then if we pay attention here in the web app, when the heartbeat kicks in, you're going to see that assignment status change to show that it's in progress. And then the note that I added, in addition to the new photo, are both going to be there. So there's that note I mentioned. I think it's that one. There's Aaron. Looking way more pleasant to look at than the person on my right. So that's just a sneak peek of the current dev work that we're working on Workforce. I'm going to pass it back to Jeff to do a wrap-up and then introduce Tracker.
Thank you, Craig. That was a very nice, short, sweet demo that you did there. Appreciate that.
Well, I had to fill in some context because your slides were content-free.
So as Craig mentioned, what's next for us is being able to work offline. There's the new user experience, and we're updating to the latest version of the ArcGIS runtime and syncing that up with all of the other apps. So you can see this pattern as you go through and follow us in all of the presentations we're doing this week, right? Because we're the most important thing here at the conference. Now, if Craig can deliver on his promises, we're looking at a Q2, Q3 timeline. He's given me a 2 quarters worth gap for schedule, but we'll see what we can do. Hopefully I'm not putting a 2 and a 0 instead of a 1 and a 9, right, Craig? Yeah. I know you don't have a mic anymore. That's wonderful, isn't it, for me? As part of that release plan, though, we're making a bunch of schema changes. So an important thing to think about is that this new offline workforce experience will require that you've upgraded, if you're using ArcGIS Enterprise, to 10.7 or higher. We'll run the apps side by side so that you can start to migrate your workflows over time. So we don't just throw this new experience at you and have your field workers kind of screaming at you because everything's different. So that's the workforce product, and we wanted to talk next a little bit about Tracker for ArcGIS. So when we built Workforce, we had a lot of customers that started to use the concept of the last known location, but not really needing the ability to work with assignments. And they were using it for a lot of different purposes, whether it be for situational awareness or just understanding where their workforce is located. And we did not build Workforce for that purpose. So we started to look at how could we take those capabilities and bring them into a new offering that's focused on that specific set of workflows. So Tracker for ArcGIS is a part of that. Its main purpose is for you to know what's happening in the field. And to do that, we have built a very lightweight mobile application that you can use to share your location and use the location history of those breadcrumbs to do interesting analysis and detect patterns in the behavior of your workforce if you're interested in it. There's a number of different use cases that were driven from our talks with customers, and I'm going to walk through some of our early adopters and show you some of the examples that have come up already, all of them focusing first on situational awareness. So I won't talk about that right here in this slide. I'll talk about some of the other examples. When it comes to public safety, when it comes to the response efforts around events that happen, this ability to move from an end-of-day assessment to near real time in evaluating what's happening during the course of your response is really important. So Tracker can be installed on a mobile device, left in the background, capture this breadcrumb trail, and you can use some of the analytic capabilities in our platform to do things like aggregate those locations across a search area and know whether there was coverage. Or in the case of a flood event or a wildfire event, when you have a damage assessment team out, know whether they actually covered the perimeter of a building or not, because that often is an indicator of whether they've properly completed their search. We've had a lot of utilities think about the ability to quantify the proof of work. Was that mobile worker at the location when they did that inspection? More and more we're seeing that gas utilities are being regulated to provide location information of their workforce as well as the inspection work that was completed. And the final one is an interesting one, and that's directly related to kind of this commitment that you get, especially when using contractors as part of your field work. So there's that concept of this level of service commitment that you engage in those contracts, right? But how do you measure that? The field workers, they need to go and do inspection work, they need to do assessments. They're giving you some level of service, but how are you able to know whether that service is being met? Now, we've had organizations, especially in the oil and gas space, where they've said our level of service, and we're going to actually get on your well pad at least once a day. That's our commitment to you. But you have no way to measure that. You could look at the AVL systems and get their breadcrumb trails, but often you don't have access to that data, right? So how do you really know? With Tracker, all the information that you're capturing is stored within your organization. We're going to talk about where and how you can access it, but now in the hands of your contractors, you can install mobile applications, and they can turn on and off tracking when they're working. And that information goes back to your organization, not to some AVL system or some black box where you have to ETL data back into ArcGIS and try to make use of it. Okay, enough about the use cases. Some of the early adopters, if there's any Canadians in the room besides Craig and I, there's this big football game that happens once a year. It's much more exciting than the Super Bowl. It's called the Grey Cup. It was in Edmonton, Alberta this year. And the Edmonton Police Force, we equipped them with Tracker on iPhone devices. And they were essentially rovers. So they were placed around I can't remember the name of the stadium, around the stadium in Edmonton and out into the neighborhoods around it, because those Canadians can drink pretty heavy and get a little rowdy. So as a security force, they need to know where everyone is at in case some incident happened and they needed to find a nearest resource to go tell them, I'm sorry, you can't do that anymore. Similarly, we deployed a Tracker for situational awareness during the Rose Parade and the Rose Bowl football game. There's definitely a football theme into what I'm going to show you. And in that instance, we've actually seen that the Pasadena Fire Department has Tracker as an early adopter for our release on all of the responders' devices, and whether they're supporting an event like the Rose Parade or they're doing their day-to-day operations, not only do they know where everyone's at, but they know what areas they've covered over the course of a day or a month or longer, and can assess some value from that. Last was this American event they call the Super Bowl. If you're not a Patriots fan, it was kind of a boring game, right? At least that's my assessment of it all. I don't know. I think Aaron's a Patriots fan, but I'm going to probably pay for that.
He's a Bills fan.
Oh, is he a Bills fan? I thought you were a Patriots fan. Anyway, we worked with a number of organizations that came together for that event, and it was a similar thing. It was all about knowing where everyone's at, being able to just have the individual become essentially a sensor, and providing that near real-time location sharing back into the organization to support the event. So that has really picked up for us. In fact, we're currently supporting Mardi Gras in New Orleans, and we're going to do the LA Marathon in a month. So from an event perspective, from a situational awareness perspective, Tracker is kind of a leading new technology for us. So what it is that we're building, what are the components of Tracker? Well, obviously there's a mobile application that runs on iOS and Android devices. Aaron's going to show you this in a little bit. It's a very simple app. It's essentially, You're installing a tracker, you're turning it on when you need to be tracked, and you're just forgetting about it. You're just leaving it on. It runs in the background, and it's designed to have minimal impact on battery life, and we can talk a little bit about how that works as well. Integrated into ArcGIS Enterprise as its first release here at the end of March, it requires just a base enterprise deployment that includes the spatiotemporal big data store, because you could potentially have a lot of individuals writing location tracks at the same time. It's important that we have a scalable data source. And so it's all fading into this spatiotemporal data store. For you using the portal, it's as simple as installing ArcGIS Enterprise with that proper setup, and then in the administration aspect of your portal at 10.7, the settings app will actually have location tracking as a new capability. And you can turn it on, you could pause it, you could remove it, and you can set a retention period for how long those tracks will be stored. And then we do have a web application called the Track Viewer that lets that administrator set up views. And those views can be used to share those location tracks in a secure way throughout the organization. So with that context, I'm going to pass it over to Aaron, who's going to show you these different aspects of Tracker.
Cool. So we're going to start off by showing the iOS mobile app. So when a user first signs in to Tracker for ArcGIS, they're brought immediately to the map screen here. And you can see at the bottom, like we showed earlier in Workforce, there's this common sliding panel. And on the right-hand side, you can see there's a toggle. So this toggle is important. When a mobile user signs in, they're in control of when they're being tracked or not. So if they want to be tracked while they're on work, they can enable tracking, and when they go home, they can turn it off. By looking at this panel, you can slide it up and see that there's different date filters that can be applied. So currently, I'm looking at my tracks for today. But if I want to see tracks for yesterday, I could change that or up for the last 48 hours or 72 hours. If we zoom into some of these tracks here, you can see a few things. So first off, you might see this directional arrow over here. So this arrow indicates the direction of travel at that time. If I tap on the actual line there, you can see information in this callout. So we know we're collecting a lot of metadata in Tracker, such as when that point was recorded, what activity is going on, what speed I was moving at, what accuracy is there, and my coordinates are displayed in this callout as well. It's important to note the activity. So we're leveraging the Core Motion API on iOS and the equivalent on Android to know when the device is in motion. So when the device is moving, we are requesting locations with high accuracy. When the device is set down and it's stationary, we're not using the GPS. So this gives us a lot of benefits in terms of battery life. If we jump over to the user profile here, you can see there's a few settings. So one of the important ones is reminders. So an end user is able to tap to enable a reminder schedule. So for example, if they want to only be tracked Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, they can configure a schedule such as this. And when it's 9 a.m. in the morning on, say, Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, they'll get a notification on their device that they need to start tracking. And then a similar thing at 6 p.m. on those same days, they'll get a notification to stop tracking. Additionally, they have the ability to configure the coordinates that are displayed. So many organizations use WGIS84. They might use MGRS. There are a lot of different options here that's common across our apps. You might be wondering how frequently does this information get uploaded? So the last known location is a configurable setting in the app. This represents the last known location or the current location of this particular user. So in this case, my current location is being updated every 60 seconds as my device moves. But this could be dropped down to 30 seconds if I need higher frequency. As far as tracks are stored locally on the device in a SQLite database. So this app works completely offline. When you do have connectivity, the tracks are uploaded on a 10-minute frequency. One other thing to note is that if you're using this device and it's plugged in and it has a battery percentage of greater than 20%, the tracks are actually uploaded at a higher frequency of every 1 minute. So these are the basics of the app. One other cool thing to show is we have dark mode in the app. So if we enable that and switch back, we can actually see it. We switch the base map and the theme of the app. So if you're using it at night, it's a very nice experience. So now I'm going to jump over to the Track Viewer web app and show you how you can view these tracks from multiple users in your organization. So what you see here is a track view. So a track view consists of a list of users on the left-hand side, and then also a list of track viewers, which we'll show in a second. So here you can see all these gray tracks represent all the people that I see in my view. I can choose to select someone here, such as myself, and it will paint my color on the map here. Let's select a few other people as well so you can see the different colors. If we zoom in a little bit, you might notice as I hover over here, there's actually points that are underneath the lines. So everything that we record in Tracker is stored as point features. These are uploaded to a single location tracking service, and then the client app, such as in this case Track Viewer, is able to reconstruct the lines to visualize it in a cleaner way. We can actually click on one of these points to see a nice pop-up showing the different attributes of that location. So some of the information that we collect includes the time, the battery percentage, the activity that we showed earlier on the mobile app, the direction of travel, and the accuracy. And I'm actually able to traverse my track by using these next and previous buttons. You might notice on the left-hand side there's a couple panels here. So one is a time span. So right now we're looking at the last 8 hours. I can change this to query up to the last 24 hours or 72 hours, or even I can even set a custom time range in this case. We also allow you to filter by accuracy. So right now I have an accuracy filter of 100 feet. You can see that up here. We keep a list of chiclets at the top, which indicate the current filters, highlights, and painting going on in the view. If I clear this out, you might notice that some of the points that we collect have pretty poor accuracy. So it's important to note and use this accuracy filter. As mentioned earlier, because we're capturing the speed, we have the ability to highlight based on speed. So for example, if we want to find sections of tracks that are between 20 and say 40 miles per hour, I can apply this, and areas that meet that criteria will be shown in dark colors. That was a poor choice. We'll do a lower one. There we go. So here we're showing all tracks that have a 0 to 36 mile per hour speed. And the final filter or highlight that we allow is activity. So I can select to see when people were walking, and you might notice a change in the map there, especially on the purple track. We can also select stationary if we don't know the activity for some reason, or we can choose driving. So you might be wondering, how do I create one of these track views? So there's a configuration experience. So as an administrator in the organization, I have the ability to create a new track view. So I can click this button, I could fill out, we'll make a new track view. Here, click create. So what's going on right now is it's creating a new item in the portal, which is actually a view service. And this view service contains 2 layers, which correspond to the 2 layers in the tracking service. So there's one layer that represents the last known locations of every user, and there's a second layer that represents all the historical tracks. So once this is completed, we can see how to add mobile users and track viewers to this. So right now, this track view contains no mobile users, but I can easily select someone from my organization, such as myself, click add, and this will add this user to the track view. Similarly, we have the concept of a track viewer. So a track viewer is analogous to a supervisor or a manager, someone that needs access to view multiple users in the field. So here, I can add someone else. Maybe I'll add Craig as a manager, for example.
That's right. Scary thought.
I know. And now I can open this track view, and because I'm an administrator, I'm automatically a track viewer as well. And I can zoom in, and I can see my tracks for today, very similar to what we just saw earlier. So this is the Track Viewer web application. And as Jeff alluded to earlier, this location tracking is a new capability of ArcGIS Enterprise. So if you sign in as an administrator, go to the organization page, go to settings, you might notice a new location tracking tab here on Enterprise 10.7. So if you have the big data store installed, you're able to click a button here, which would allow you to enable location tracking. And that will create all the service behind the scenes, as well as any other important information for location tracking. So by default, when you enable location tracking, the retention period is 30 days. But you're able to configure this if you want to keep tracks around for a longer period of time. We provide options such as 90 days, 6 months, 1 year, or always. However, you're able to go into the back end and actually configure this however you would like. Here, you might notice that there's a couple roles that can view tracks. So as a new capability of Enterprise 10.7, there's a new privilege that was introduced. And this privilege is called View Location Tracks. So anyone that is a supervisor or a dispatcher that needs to view other people, they have to have this new privilege in their role. So for example, if we jump over to the Roles tab and open the Creator Track View, we can actually see this new privilege here. So this adds an additional layer of security for location tracking. And because this capability is an organization-wide service, you're able to use these tracks in other apps, such as Operations Dashboard right here. If we click on one of these points, hopefully this works, you can see all the attributes that we collect. So even though we don't display everything in the Track Viewer app, there's other things we collect, such as the vertical accuracy. You might be wondering, well, how can I use these tracks in my organization? So here we're showing a map of the Portland, Maine area near where our office is. So these are the raw points. But I can actually run geoanalytics tools to rebuild the lines and use these as a new feature layer in my organization. Additionally, there's other tools in geoanalytics, such as detect incidents, that will let you leverage the track-aware data to compare multiple points for a specific track. So here, I'm showing the acceleration between 2 consecutive points for my drive to work. So in this example, I'm highlighting acceleration greater than 2 meters per second squared. So this would be considered like hard acceleration. So if we zoom in to one of these examples, you can see that as I travel to work, I get on 295 South, and here the acceleration is high because I'm entering the highway. One other interesting thing you can do is you can use clustering algorithms to identify areas where people tend to congregate. So here in the blue is my house, in red is the Portland, Maine R&D Center, and in green is another employee's house. So this just highlights how location tracking is a new platform capability, and you're able to use it in all sorts of ways. So I'll send it back to Jeff to wrap up.
Well, that was a wonderful demo, Aaron. Great job. Really well done. There's just a couple of things I wanted to highlight before we finish and take some questions. You might be wondering, well, how is Esri going to deliver this new tracker app? One of the key things that we need to point out is that we will be monetizing the mobile application. So it is a premium app that will work with any user type. So you'll have to purchase the mobile app, but it'll work with a viewer user type and higher. So if you're using ArcGIS Enterprise, you have unlimited viewers for free, but there is a cost on the app. There is no cost for the rest of the system, other than the fact you have to buy the base deployment of ArcGIS Enterprise. And I really want to stress that that does not include geo events. We are writing to the spatiotemporal big data store, but there is no cost in addition to ArcGIS Enterprise for that. It just comes with it. You'll need to think about how you scale that back end, of course, but you don't have to purchase any additional extensions to the server in order to use it. Geoanalytics, obviously, as Aaron has just shown, is a nice addition because there's all the analytical tools that you can use. And geo-events can be as well if you want to enrich or use geofencing as a part of the solution, but neither are required. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that we do store the tracks locally so that you can work offline. And in that mobile context, We are working to include the ability to view tracks in other mobile applications like Workforce and Collector and Explorer as an example. So I wanted to make sure that you're aware of that. That location tracking service and all the capabilities we've talked about can be kind of highlighted in this architecture. If you want to think about user roles again, there's the administrator that goes into the portal and enables location tracking within the organization. It requires that big data store be set up. But then the feature service that gets created is available for you to start to use. The tracker app essentially brings that service to life because it's the app that's writing those tracks to the data store. And then the track views are the way that you can share those tracks, perhaps to a supervisor or to others in the organization. And you could use the track viewer that Aaron demonstrated to visualize and interrogate the tracks, or you could add them into dashboards if you want to visualize those tracks as well. Or you could use the analytics tools and create new data sources out of it potentially if you want. One other example I should mention is that we've had a forestry company approach us saying, hey, I want to take our logging trucks and I want to install the tracker app on it because we don't actually have any road data for where they travel. I want to use those tracks and then use that reconstruct tracks tool to generate a road network out of it by just kind of making the driver a data mule, for lack of a better term. The schema itself, we talked about it briefly. It is a feature service inside the spatiotemporal big data store, and it has two layers to it. A last known location layer, which is great for all those situational awareness use cases, and then the tracks feature layer. They have identical schemas to them, and they store all of this track content, or metadata, I should say, that you can use in your analytics. And you can add those layers to other, into other applications as well. Last thing to mention before we take some questions is that, you know, again, there's the situational awareness aspects of it, but there's some really amazing analytics that you can do with it. Linear heat maps is a good example of that. Here's my golf game from the partner conference this weekend. We won't go zoom in and look at any of the bad shots that I guess I got to bring that out onto the other screen. That's weird that it didn't go over. And you can see I used a linear heat map approach to visualize all of those tracks. But then just like Aaron did, we could kind of zoom in and take a look at those tracks in more detail. You can probably see that I know. What do in the water? So important is that we record all the tracks that we capture, and if you look at them, you can, like I just kind of had fun and said this is the 19th hole, but you can look at the accuracy of those points as well. And no, I was not hitting a ball out of the water there. I had 128 meter accuracy. It's up to you to filter out that accuracy if you want. But think about that and all the analytics that you could do with those tracks, because you know, the possibilities are really endless, and we're really excited about what you can bring with this data as GIS professionals into your organization. So with that, we've shown you Workforce, what's there today, what's coming, this new tracker app that's being released in March, and then will be available with ArcGIS Online in June, if I didn't say that, as well with its release of ArcGIS Online. Do we have any questions in the 2 minutes we have left? Yes.
Clarification, you said right now it's being released for Enterprise 10.7, but you're saying in June there would be a standalone, just like Workforce, web-based configuration like that.
Yeah.
Tracker would be available to
Yeah. Just to say that again, with the initial release of this new tracker capability, it will come with ArcGIS Enterprise 10.7 first here at the end of March when we release ArcGIS Enterprise. And then, as you know, ArcGIS Online updates every quarter. There's a March update. We didn't make the code freeze deadline for that. We're hitting the summer release of it, which is scheduled for June. And then that ability to create a location tracking service will be inside of ArcGIS Online as well.
Be a separate named user license required, or is it under the same umbrella?
It's the same umbrella. I mean, I say that with the caveat that we're not there yet. And you know, we might have changes in licensing, but the current plan is that it is the same for enterprise as it is with online.
And the photos that we upload using Workforce, they're using getting uploaded on the cloud system and ArcGIS Online and using the credits, right?
The question there is the photos that you capture inside of ArcGIS Online, or that you capture inside of Workforce, are uploaded into ArcGIS Online and using credits, just like anything else. Well, the point to make there is that the assignment schema is a hosted feature layer inside of ArcGIS Online. Whether you're using Collector, Workforce, or Survey 123, those are not charged as feature credits, but as storage credits. So they're stored separate of the actual database, so it's a reduced cost. And if you go into the pricing for ArcGIS Online, you'll see what that credit usage looks like. But it's a minimal cost. It's not like you're getting paid or you're getting charged by the megabyte of a photo. Yeah. Question?
Yeah, you said that they're supported for iOS and Android, which is obviously my two favorite operating systems, but I work for the federal government and I don't always get what I want. And so oftentimes we're having to use Windows 10 and mobile tablets. Is there going to be support for that in the near future for Workforce and for Tracker?
Yeah, so with Windows 10, we've got this renewed development effort that's ongoing with the platform. If you went to our Explorer session, you would have seen that we're now in beta of a Windows 10 offering for Explorer. And Collector and Survey 123 are obviously there as well. We've already started to look at getting Tracker built for Windows 10 because it's a pretty low bar of entry, we think, on that. But we're going to make those decisions about what's next for us once we finish Explorer. So I don't want to commit to us building Workforce or building any other apps on it yet, but once we get Explorer, then we'll start to announce what we're going to do next. But it's good to know.
For Workforce on Windows, we need to know how many people. What's the opportunity, right? So, you know, knowing that it's an opportunity with the federal government is great, but actually getting those numbers that's what we need, because that's what we can use and bring that back to make the point that we need to dedicate resources to doing it.
Yeah, good point. So let us know. I mean, with all of our apps, we have an email alias, or you can contact one of us. For us, it's Workforce and the number 4, ArcGIS at Esri.com. In the app, you can even email us if you want. And it goes directly to Craig. So if you get a nasty reply, it's his fault. Yes?
Did I understand you correctly that there's not a way to automatically turn it on and off? You can just set reminders?
That is correct. So the question was, there's no way to automatically turn on and off tracking in the mobile app. That's exactly correct. What's really important from the feedback we've received is that the mobile users in charge of when they start and stop tracking, that's not enforced by the enterprise at all, especially for personal privacy, especially for regulations in Europe with GDPR and whatnot. So the mobile worker is in charge of when they start and stop tracking. And the reminders aspect is for them to know when it is time to start tracking. That's what we're doing for our first release. And we'll see if we improve or change upon that after we receive feedback from customers. Yeah?
You may have covered this, but this tracker tracking the background, the screen's off, etc.
Aaron, you want to?
Yeah, so the Tracker app works completely in the background. So it works in the foreground. If you put it in the background, that's fine. If you accidentally close the app, it actually will respond to quote-unquote significant location changes. So if you move a certain distance or connect to like a certain cell tower, it will restart automatically if someone accidentally closes it.
Yeah, you had a question.
Are there any plans to incorporate a calendar view of any kind? It doesn't have to interact with Outlook calendar. That would be most helpful, but are you I mean, I remember when I was playing with it, you can set the dates of the activity or the task, whatever.
Workforce.
And it would be really helpful for scheduling to be able to like go to a date in your calendar and see what tasks, like where people are geographically. Do you have any plans for any kind of calendar scheduling aspect to it?
Yeah, so the question was, you know, in Workforce for the dispatcher or somebody who's viewing the assignments, is there any ability to see a different view from just the list, sort of broken out in calendar, sort of like an Outlook kind of feel? Yeah, I mean, that is something that's in our backlog. Honestly, though, it doesn't come up enough to really move it up in the priority to do. So happy to take your information afterwards so we can get that into the issue and promote it up, or put it on Ideas or through GeoNet. Did you talk about what else we're thinking about for Workforce moving forward?
No, you took so long with the demo, I had to cut a whole bunch of slides. I had like 20 other slides, dude. Jeez, it was harsh.
So normally this is something our product manager is responsible for doing, but mine is MIA recently, so, you know, he's... So for Workforce, sort of the next big ticket items after offline, there's like 3 really big ones that people are asking for. The ability to expand the assignment schema, to add other fields to it. Oh yeah, there you go.
Let's see if it matches.
So, yeah, the ability to add fields to it. You can do that right now with Workforce. Just don't touch our fields. You can add any other fields that you want. And then you can go into, you know, the Workforce project JSON if you like, and you know, update collector and survey to pass those through. We've tested that. The way the Workforce mobile app works is if it can find the field, it'll pass the value. It won't do any checking to make sure it's ours or not. So that's one, and we want to make those available in both the dispatcher and the worker view in both read and edit format. And we have some ideas on how to do that. That's one. The other one is the ability for mobile workers to create work in the field, and that'll be controllable through a privilege. And then the last one is the ability for workers to be able to pick up work. So those are the really big ticket items that we're working on next. Things like the calendar view and other enhancements that we would do, like I said, come on up afterwards, we can take your info and get that in so we can help move that up.
I think we're out of time for questions, so please take the survey. If you didn't like this session, my name is James Tedrick, and this was the survey session. Please leave lots of nasty comments for me as James. All right. Thank you.